Saying yes destroys more businesses than saying no. Today, I wanna share with you how to overcome shiny object syndrome, or essentially saying yes to all these new opportunities so you can stay focused, grow your business, and give yourself the best chance of success. So there's a company that we started working with about 2.5 years ago. And when we brought that company on, it was very clear that there were two things that need to happen for that company to basically triple. And it was first, create a back-end offer, and then second is build out the executive team. So, we did what we do. We did diligence on the business, we analyzed the business, we come up with like the top constraints, and then we met with the business, they flew in person, we built out their 3-year, their 1-year, and then breakdown by quarterly plan to get to where we needed to be. And it really consisted of doing just those two super simple things. And when we were at the kickoff day, which is what we call it, a kickoff day, it felt like it was really clear. It felt like they were excited. They were like, yes, this is amazing. This is what we need. This feels completely online. And leaving that kickoff day, everyone felt great. They were excited, there was high energy, it was like everyone was super excited until we had our meeting 2 weeks later. And then our meeting 2 weeks after that, and then our meeting 2 weeks after that. Every time we met with them, they came to us saying, I don't think what we set off on kickoff day is what we need to do. I think we need to do this thing. And I think we need to do this thing. And I think we need to do this thing. The first time it was, hey, we need to completely redo our front end program and we need to do something completely different, right? We need to scrap this entire product line that we have that's making us, almost $50 million a year. And then the second time it was actually, we need a different back-end offer than the one that we talked about on kickoff day. We need this completely different back-end offer. And we're like, how about we don't do that because people actually surveyed and said they wanted the first one more. So we should ignore the one that you just came up with because only a small amount of your customers want that one. And they're like, okay, yeah, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And then the third time it was, hey guys, I know that we've got this going and what we're gonna do, but I think we actually need to become a software company. And we were like, that's amazing. Software is great. We love software. Not today. And so as you can see, every time we met with a company, it was like a new shiny object had popped up and it had completely enmeshed them in it. It was like everything else got put to the side. No progress was being made on the initiatives that we set out. And it was just like, all we were doing was every time we got on the phone, we were convincing them to stick with the original plan. So what they were doing is they were just exhibiting what many first-time entrepreneurs do, which is what we call shiny object syndrome. Luckily, they trusted us enough to not do those things and instead focus on the two big things that we did define. And that alone, at a period of about 18 months, 10x their business. And so they now ignore shiny object syndrome. However, it took them a while to get there. It took them a lot of trust in us, and not everybody has an us to rely on and to tell them, hey, go focus on the thing you already set out to do. And listen, ignoring shiny object syndrome alone is not going to 10x your business. That's a very edge case scenario, but I'm showing you the power of focus. So what is shiny object syndrome? Everyone talks about it all the time, but I'd like to define terms. It's defined as the continual state of distraction brought on by an ongoing belief that there is something new worth pursuing over the current thing. And it often comes at the expense of the thing that has already been planned or is already underway to happen. What I don't agree with is the term syndrome, because I think it makes it sound like some condition that you suffer from. In fact, it is a belief paired with a behavior. That's all shiny object syndrome is. And you've gotten really good at practicing. You believe there's something better out there, therefore you behave in a way that is distracted and you tend to stray away from the plan. And then you do it over and over and over again. And that's what people call shiny object syndrome. We have learned to be really good at it. And so we can learn to be bad at it. What is being bad at shiny object syndrome? Being focused. And so if we can learn to be unfocused, we can also learn to be focused. But if we want to do that, we need to think, why does it exist in the first place? Why do people get shiny object syndrome? What is it that leads us to this point? And so what I've noticed is that oftentimes shiny object syndrome just happens to come up at the same time as the current thing you're doing just gets a little bit boring, maybe a little bit monotonous. Maybe it's you're doing the same thing every day. Maybe it's the thing is actually starting to work because you're doing the hard work and the boring work and the things that are required to make something work. And so often what happens is that when we enter a new opportunity, we're in an uninformed optimism. Right? We're like, this is amazing. It's great. I love this thing. This is the best. I love this business. I love this person. I love this whatever. And we're super excited about it. And then what happens is as we get a little further into it, in a business, it might be a matter of, I want to say it's around the 6 to 12 month mark. Definitely at the 12 month mark, you're going to hit it, which is when we're in informed pessimism, which is, oh, in the beginning, all I see is upside. But now I've been around long enough, I can realize the downside of the upside, right? I start to see what pieces of this business are going to be issues or problems. And so then what happens, especially with inexperienced entrepreneurs, is they think, oh shit, there's something wrong with this. This is not good. This is going to be harder than I thought. This is definitely not as easy as I thought it was going to be. This was easy and now it's not easy anymore. I should do something different. oh, that thing that guy there, Johnny online, Johnny on Instagram, he's doing so much better, so much more money, so much easier. I should do what Johnny's doing. Why am I not doing what Johnny's doing? And so really it's the first thing becomes hard or boring, or it is not meeting our expectations. Therefore, we look at something else and think that thing will meet my expectations faster, better, and I'll make more money. And so the question is, people always say to themselves, especially people that do this all the time, they say, I don't know why I keep doing this, Layla. Well, we do things that reward us in some way. And so often what shiny object syndrome does is in the short term, it solves your boredom. It solves your frustration. It solves the short-term emotions that you don't want to feel. Because what happens is you're in this current thing and it's taking time, it's boring, it's monotonous. Then you get distracted and you look at the other shiny object and you think, oh, I should start investigating that. I need to start looking into that. I need to start talking to people. I need to make some phone calls. I need to network with some people. And that's exciting. It's like, ooh, there's all this opportunity. This is how much money I can make. This is all this. And you start to feel good. Though it doesn't reward you in the long run, because typically all you're going to do is build another business 12 months in, $1 million in, whatever it is, and then say, oh, this one sucks, I should go start a different one. However, what it does do is it makes you feel better. And so people often do what they're rewarded for. In this case, you're rewarded with excitement, with stimulation, with feeling better. In the short term, it solves for the boredom and the frustration you're feeling. In the long term, it actually creates more of it. So here's how it typically goes in a business when an entrepreneur falls prey to shiny object syndrome. When a new idea that you've got gains even like the tiniest bit of traction, you and typically the immediate team like completely divert your attention to that thing. You assess its viability, you look at what could do, you look at how you could do it, you look at the resources you would need, and usually it's in a very biased manner. So right now at this point in time, nobody sees the downside, you especially, and the team is too afraid to tell you anything. For the most part, everyone's saying like, this is so great, this thing looks amazing, we should continue to investigate this, looks like a great allocation of resources for sure. And then what happens is that the team actually starts to doubt the current opportunity. So when we start to pursue something new, the team sees the founder or the CEO's behavior, and their behavior is they divert their attention from the thing that's working and they divert it over here. And what that shows through how that founder's behaving is that this thing is more important, this thing is better, and therefore this thing is unimportant. And who on a team wants to be focused on the unimportant thing or the thing that the founder doesn't want to focus on? Not many people. And so then what people do is they reserve their efforts from the old thing. They say, oh, it's not worth it anymore because there might be this new thing. And so they're not even putting their full effort to the new thing yet because maybe there's no opportunity, but what they are doing is withholding effort from the current thing. And so what happens is you divert resources in two ways. One, you divert certain resources from the old thing by pulling them to the new thing and saying, go look at this. And then they're distracted. And then their output from the old thing goes down. For the rest of the people, they withhold their efforts because they're concerned with good evidence that the old thing is no longer what we're going to be doing, therefore they withhold their effort. Even if the new thing isn't worth pursuing, now the old thing doesn't look as appealing. Why? Well, because people don't give as many fucks. People aren't trying as hard, nor you nor the team are. Even if the new thing's not worth pursuing, it actually starts to unjustly look better because the old thing starts to typically decline. And so what does that look like in terms of outcomes in a business? I can name a few. The first is you get tons of product lines. Okay, so there is a lot of businesses that I have looked at, I've done diligence on, and they have 6 to 10 different products and they're not even at 3 million yet. Why do they have all these products? Because they literally get shiny object syndrome. They think their product is good, then they see the downside of that product after they've had it out in the market long enough, and then they say, instead of fixing the problems on the current one, I'm just gonna start a new one. And then they end up with this like weird product lines that don't really match, and when customers are buying, they actually don't even know what to buy, and so then their close rate goes down because there's too many options. The second thing they get is they get a culture full of mediocre. Why do they get mediocre? Because everyone's attention is split. It's not on the old thing, because that is apparently like dying and unjust, and the founder doesn't like it anymore, and so nobody wants to pay attention to that. And then it's not necessarily on the new thing, because the new thing's not fully formed yet, but instead they're just thinking about the two. And so their attention is split between both of those, just like you as the founder is. And the last thing is that you really end up with a Frankenstein business. I once met a guy who wanted to work with acquisition.com, and he had 7 businesses or products, whatever you want to call it, all doing $1 million a year. He couldn't figure out why he couldn't grow past $1 million a year in any product line. I wonder why. It was him and a team of maybe 10 people, all trying to balance this like web of these weird products. And when I asked him why he started them, he said he felt like it was fun. He gets bored with things easily. And so the cycle continues and it feeds, and that's why a lot of people's businesses don't grow. So if this sounds like you, or it sounds like something that you consistently fight with, right? Something where you waste your attention. Because what happens is shiny object syndrome steals more attention from entrepreneurs than anything else I've ever seen. It takes all their creative juju from figuring out how to solve the problem in the first product or business, and it takes it to the new one. And the reality is that every time you spread your attention, you're not gonna be as good at solving either problem. It's like you can't solve the current business because you don't have enough energy to think about it. and you don't have enough constraints. And the thing is that it's often because of opportunity. Because they can start another business, they think they should, and they don't stop themselves. And so often, if you look at the people who are the most disciplined, the reason that their businesses grow is because they don't allow themselves to say, oh, the solution is to start something new. They say, I must fix the current thing. But if you feel like you're stuck in this cycle of continuously starting something new, whether it be a product or a business, then listen to what you can do to decrease it. How do you overcome shiny object syndrome? First, if we want to figure out how to stop something, let's talk about how to make it worse. Okay, so how would I increase shiny object syndrome? One, I would surround myself with people who were afraid to contradict me and say no, right? So I would surround myself with people who all felt like they were dumber than me. I would surround myself with people who were very passive. I would surround myself with people who weren't smarter than me. I would hire people who didn't know what they were doing, who didn't have experience, so that if I had an idea, they would feel afraid to say no. The second thing I would do is I would constantly look at everybody around me. I'd be comparing myself to everybody else. And in my mind, my measuring stick of success would be Johnny on Instagram, Sarah on Instagram, you know, Jeff that I went to school with that's now like making hundreds of thousands of dollars with this new thing. And I'd be constantly looking at all of them and then beating myself up if I wasn't where they were, if my business wasn't as good as their business, if I wasn't making as much money as them. The third thing I would do is I would measure my success on a short time horizon, right? So if I wanted to increase shiny object syndrome, I would say, if this business doesn't make me $3 million a year in the next 12 months, I'm out. This thing's a piece of shit. Rather than thinking on longer time horizons, giving ourselves realistic goals. And then I would allow myself to indulge in the thoughts that come up in my brain about my current situation. Thoughts like, maybe this won't work as well as you thought. Maybe you're not actually good at this. Maybe you're not suited for this business. Or if I had the business that Jeff had over there, my life would be so much easier. I'd make so much money. It'd go so much faster. This business is so shitty. That one's so much better. I would believe those thoughts. That's how we would increase shiny object syndrome. Now, how do we decrease it? First is we want to surround ourselves with people who hold us accountable. People who don't tolerate that kind of immature behavior of always sacrificing the long term for the short term. I would hire people who would find that to be immature. I would hire people who wouldn't tolerate it and would leave. I would surround myself with friends who would remind me of my commitments. And then I would publicly commit to the things worth doing. Notice that acquisition.com, we talk about how we're gonna hit $1 billion. How embarrassing would it be if a year from saying that, I changed my mind and start some tech company? And everyone's like, wait, I thought you said you were gonna hit $1 billion. That'd be embarrassing. Public humiliation is a strong incentive to keep you to stay the course. The second thing I would do is I would stop deliberately following, stalking, and consuming content from people that I constantly beat myself up when I consume their content. And the reason for that is comparison by itself is not bad. Comparison is actually very productive and good. But if you can't look at someone's page without thinking, I need to fucking start their business so I can beat his ass, then stop looking at his shit. Continuously following their content, looking at their page and watching what they're doing, it's not gonna help you. They're more likely to beat you the more you obsess over them. And then I would get crystal clear on my long-term plan and set rewards for sticking to the plan. If you can reward yourself for sticking to a plan, you will get further than rewarding yourself for an outcome. And so if I can set a long-term vision and then reward myself for sticking with that plan that's going to get me to that long-term vision, then I'm more likely to do that and not be derailed by these shiny objects that come around. And the last piece is I would expect myself to doubt myself. I would expect myself to find other opportunities incentivizing. I would expect myself to feel impatient. I would expect myself to feel distracted. But I wouldn't make that mean that I needed to change my behavior. I can feel distracted, I can feel impatient. It doesn't mean I need to start a new business. I can feel frustrated, I can feel bored in my current business. It doesn't mean I need to change direction. I can feel like there's something wrong with the current product line. That doesn't mean I need to start a new one. It means I might need to fix the old one. And so oftentimes we believe that, I hear entrepreneurs say like, I'm so impatient, I'm so distracted, I'm so this. I'm like, I feel all those things as well. I just don't act upon them. I expect myself that I'm gonna feel impatient, I'm gonna want things to go faster, I'm gonna wanna make more money faster. But the reality is that if you wanna build anything worth building, if you wanna build something big, actually it's going to take you longer, because building the foundation of a $1 billion business might take you 7 years, whereas building the foundation for a $1 million business might take you 6 months. But what happens is that the fact that you built the foundation this way and you get to the million faster, it actually behooves you, because then you can't get to 10 billion. You have to rebuild a foundation again, which instead of rebuilding a foundation, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna go start a new business. Because when you build something with a short term in mind, you continuously cap yourself, and it is harder to grow that thing. But if you can set yourself and you commit yourself to a long-term vision, you can commit to building the foundation, and you can stick through the times where it feels shitty, it feels boring, it feels monotonous, it feels frustrating, then you will get there so much faster. Because what happens is that if you compare yourself to the entrepreneurs, you've got entrepreneur A and entrepreneur B. Entrepreneur A sets a 10-year vision, and he's like, all right, year one, I might not make much money. Year 2, I'll make a little bit of money. Year 3, I'll make some money. But by year 10, I'm gonna make more money than, gosh, I'm gonna know what to do with. I'm gonna be making $300 million. And then you've got entrepreneur B. Entrepreneur B sets his plan so that year 1, he makes $1 million. And after that, he has no plan. So in year 1, he will make $1 million. You can make $1 million in year 1. However, after that, the way that he built his company and such to make $1 million in year 1 prevents him from making anything more in year 2, year 3, year 4, so he stays stagnant. And the only way for him to make more money is to start a new business. And so in the end, entrepreneur A will beat entrepreneur B because they are working on building the foundation. They are keeping themselves focused, they're committed to the long-term plan, and they expect the feelings to arise of wanting to do something different, and they ignore them anyways. Now listen, ignoring shiny object syndrome alone is not going to 10x your business, but pursuing shiny object syndrome is much more likely to destroy your business than not.